The great ship Orion Dawn cut through the cold silence of space, carrying Captain Elias Ward and his crew toward a world humans had only seen in shimmering transmissions. The planet Velastra glowed below them, its oceans silver, its skies violet. It was a world of light and strange beauty, a place where even air shimmered with colors unknown to Earth. Humanity had come here seeking peace, trade, and alliance. No one expected what would truly happen. Elias stood at the bridge window, watching the world grow larger. His face was calm, but inside, a storm of thoughts moved quietly. He had seen wars, alien borders, and the pride of empires. But Velastra was different. It was ruled by the Serenai, an ancient and powerful species, graceful and proud. Known for their technology and their strict sense of honor, the Serenai princess, Alira Serenai, had sent the first message to Earth months ago, requesting a meeting. She had spoken with a voice both strong and gentle. Now, Elias was the man sent to answer. As the ship entered orbit, light shimmered around it like a living mist. The Serenai welcome fleet escorted them toward a floating palasan, enormous. Structure made of crystal and silver towers rising from the clouds. It looked like a dream suspended in the sky. The crew whispered in awe. No one had ever seen such architecture before. Elias adjusted his uniform, his brown hair brushed back, his blue eyes steady. "Open comes," he said. "Let them know the Orion Dawn comes in peace," a voice answered through the speaker, clear and melodic. "Captain Elias Ward of Earth, the Serenai welcome you. Princess Alira awaits you in the Hall of Reflection." Those words carried more warmth than formality, though Elias didn't notice then. The landing was soft as silk. A pathway of shining stone led to the entrance, where armored guards bowed in silence. Elias and his team stepped forward. The air smelled faintly sweet, like rain mixed with metal. Inside, the hall was bright and endless, mirrors reflecting infinite skies. At its center stood Princess Alira Serenai. She was unlike any being Elias had ever seen. Tall and slender, with skin that shimmered faintly like moonlight on water. She had long silver hair that fell in waves, and eyes of deep violet that seemed to hold galaxies inside. Yet beyond her beauty, something human lived in her expression, quiet curiosity, a spark of emotion that broke through royal calm. When Elias approached, she lowered her head slightly, a sign of respect in Serenai culture. "Welcome, Captain Ward of Earth," she said, her voice calm but warm. "You come from a world of storms and steel. It is an honor to meet one who carries courage instead of fear." Elias bowed. "The honor is mine, Princess Alira. Humanity seeks friendship, not conquest." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "So do we. But friendship must be proven. Words are only stars reflected on water. They shimmer, then vanish." Their meeting began as formal diplomacy. Alira's father, Emperor Sereth, presided from his high throne, surrounded by advisors. Discussions about technology, trade, and defense lasted for hours. Elias spoke clearly and honestly, explaining Earth's position as a young world rising among stars. The Serenai listened in calm silence, their expressions unreadable. To them, humans were still new, unpredictable, too emotional. But Alira kept watching Elias snap with the suspicion of her counsel. But with quiet fascination, when the final words of the treaty were spoken, Alira stood. "Captain Ward," she said, her tone shifting. "Our custom demands that a new ally prove his spirit through an open question, one that reveals truth beyond politics." Elias turned slightly, unsure what she meant. "Ask, Princess." "I'll answer honestly." The hall grew quiet. Even the guards seemed to lean closer. Alira's eyes held his for a long moment. Then, with a voice steady as starlight, she said, "What do I have to do to marry you, human?" The room froze. Advisors gasped. The Emperor's hand tightened on his staff. Elias blinked, wondering if he had misheard. He looked at her, but she wasn't smiling. There was no jest in her tone, only sincerity. "I beg your pardon?" he said quietly. "You heard me," Alira said, still calm. Among my people, I have the right to choose a bond that unites worlds. I watched your actions, your restraint, your humility. I saw no greed, no hunger for power. You stand differently from others. I ask again, what must I do to marry you? Elias could almost feel every eye in the room fixed on him. His crew shifted nervously. No one dared breathe. He wasn't sure if this was a test or a political trap. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw no trickery. Only something pure, strange and bold honesty. "Princess," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. "Humans don't marry through command or challenge. We love through choice. Through knowing each other. What you ask is not a small thing." Her eyes softened slightly, though her voice stayed regal. "Then let me know you, Captain. Let me understand what makes your people so different. If I must learn the meaning of your love, then I will." The Emperor stood, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "Alira, you break tradition before our guests. This is not the way of the Serenai." She turned to her father with quiet strength. "Father, our ways bind us to the past, but this man stands for the future. You asked for alliance? I offer one stronger than any treaty." The Emperor's gaze turned toward Elias, cold and measuring. "Human, do you understand what she says? Do you understand what such words mean in our court?" Elias nodded slowly. "I believe so, Your Majesty. But I never came here seeking marriage or throne. I came for peace." "Then prove," said the Emperor, his tone sharp, "that your peace is not weakness. If you would refuse my daughter's vow, you must show you are worthy of standing before her. The trials of the Serenai will decide." Lyra turned toward Elias, her face troubled. "Father, that is not—" But Elias raised a hand gently. "It's all right, Princess. If your world asks for proof, I'll give it. Humanity always stands by its word." The Emperor nodded once. "So be it. At dawn, the first trial begins. Should you fail, you will return to Earth in shame. Should you survive, we will see if your kind deserves more than mere trade." As the hall emptied, the silence between Elias and Alira grew heavy. When the guards left, she stepped closer. Her voice was softer now. "You didn't have to accept, Captain. My father's tests are cruel. No one has passed them in centuries." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll be the first. I don't like running from a challenge." Her eyes searched his. "You're strange for a warrior. I've been called worse," he said quietly. Then, more gently, "Princess, why did you ask me that question?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping for a moment. "Because when I spoke to your world through the transmission, I saw how you looked at the stars. You didn't look at them as property or conquest. You looked at them with wonder. The Serenai lost that long ago. You reminded me what it feels like." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind outside the crystal hall carried soft tones like music. The silver towers glowed under twin moons. Elias realized she wasn't only a ruler. She was a woman who had lived her whole life surrounded by duty, never by choice. And now she stood before him, risking her name for a question of the heart. "I can't promise what your people expect," he said slowly, "but I can promise I'll face whatever comes with honesty." Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "Then perhaps honesty is all I need." She turned and began to walk away, her dress flowing like light. But halfway down the corridor, she paused and looked back. "Captain Ward," she said softly, "tomorrow, when the trial begins, remember this our world may test your strength, but I will be watching for your heart." Elias watched her leave, her figure fading into the bright corridors of the palace. When the door closed, he let out a slow breath he didn't realize he was holding. His second officer, Lieutenant Harper, stepped beside him. Sir Harper said, whispering, "Did she just propose to you?" Elias gave a tired smile. "Seems that way," Harper said, shaking his head. "You always did know how to make an impression." And outside, the dawn of Alastra began to rise, painting the clouds with gold and violet. Elias looked toward the light. Somewhere beyond those clouds waited trials that could destroy him more, change everything between their worlds forever. But in that moment, as the first rays touched the palace, One thought echoed quietly in his mind. What if love was the strongest alliance the galaxy had never understood? He didn't know if he would survive the trials or if the Suranai would ever accept him. But one thing was certain, he would not let fear decide the path of humanity's heart. And somewhere deep within the royal chambers, Alira watched the rising sun too, her hand pressed lightly to her chest, whispering words only the wind heard. Whatever it takes, human. Whatever it takes. When dawn touched the skies of Velastra, the palace bells rang with deep, echoing tones. Captain Elias Ward stood before a group of silent Saranai guards. His uniform was torn and patched after the long journey, but his eyes were steady. The trials had begun. Princess Alira watched from the balcony above. She wore a long robe of silver-blue silk, her expression hidden behind calm control. But inside, her heart trembled. She had never meant to drag a human into her people's ancient tests. Yet she also knew that once her father declared it, there was no turning back. The first trial was known as the Trial of Echo Beasts. Legend said the creatures lived in the shattered plains, a place of broken mirrors and endless winds. Every beast there reflected a person's greatest fear. The only way to win was to face what the heart hid. Elias stepped onto a floating platform that would carry him down to the plains. A Saranai guide stood beside him, expressionless. Captain, he said, once you enter, the field will sense your fear. It will take form. You must not run. The moment you turn your back, the echo beasts multiply. Elias nodded quietly. Understood. The platform descended slowly through clouds of violet mist. The wind howled softly like distant voices. When he stepped off, the ground shimmered beneath his boots. It looked like glass but felt alive. Each step made ripples of color spread outward. At first, there was silence. Then, the air rippled and something began to rise from the ground. It took shape like smoke turning into flesh. A tall figure formed ahead of him, armor shining black as night. Elias froze when he saw the face. It was his own. The Echo Beast spoke with his voice. You pretend to be strong, Captain Ward, but you fear failure. You fear losing those who follow you. Elias took a breath. You're not wrong. Reflection smiled coldly. You say you lead for peace, but deep inside you want to prove something? You want to show that humans are better. You want to be remembered. Elis clenched his fists. The wind grew sharper, whispering 1,000 voices around him. Shadows formed beside the mirror image, ghostly outlines of his fallen soldiers from past missions, their eyes empty, accusing. You left us, one shadow said. You survived when we didn't, said another. Elias dropped to one knee, gripping his head. The guilt, long buried, poured out like a storm. He had carried the weight of every life lost under his command. The Saranai were watching from far above, but he could not see them. This trial wasn't about the body, it was about the soul. He forced himself to look up. Yes, he whispered. I failed. I've made mistakes. I've lost good people. But I keep moving because stopping won't bring them back. They believed in me and I won't betray that by giving up. The shadow version of him froze. The light around them flickered. Then, one by one, the figures dissolved into mist. The plains grew silent again. From the balcony, Alira gasped softly. Her father's advisor turned to the Emperor. Impossible. No outsider has ever faced the echoes without collapsing. The Emperor's expression remained unreadable. He is still only a man. The next trial will break him. When Elias returned to the surface, the Saranai bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, rare for outsiders. Alira waited by the steps, her eyes filled with quiet pride. You faced your fear, she said, and you didn't hide from it. He smiled faintly. I learned a long time ago that hiding doesn't change truth. For a brief moment, they stood close, and something unspoken passed between them, a warmth that neither politics nor tradition could explain. The second trial came swiftly. It was called the Luminous Rift, a storm of living light that tore through the skies beyond Velestra's moon. To cross it was madness. To survive it was nearly divine. The test required him to pilot a small ship through the rift and emerge on the other side. No shield or weapon could protect him. When Elias climbed into the sleek Saranai skimmer, he ran his hand along the controls. No weapons, no guidance, he muttered. Just instinct. Alira stood beside the launch platform, her eyes glimmering. The rift feeds on emotion. If you lose control, it will consume you, Leah smiled softly. Then I'll keep calm. That's what humans do best, under pressure. That's not what I've heard, he laughed quietly, then sealed the cockpit. As the engines roared to life, Alira whispered a few words only the wind caught. May the stars see your courage. The skimmer lifted into the sky, climbing higher until Valastra's blue light faded behind him. The rift loomed ahead, a massive storm of glowing colors twisting like a galaxy alive. It pulsed with beauty and danger. Lightning of pure energy crossed in every direction, and voices echoed faintly inside the storm like songs without words. When he entered, the controls went dead. The lights flickered. The ship spun, and Elias felt his heartbeat quicken. The rift wasn't just light, it was thought, emotion, and memory. Images flashed before his eyes. Earth's oceans, his mother's smile, the crew he'd lost, and Alira's face. He gripped the control stick tighter. Not real, he said aloud. You're not real, the rift answered with a surge of power, shaking the ship violently. A blinding wave of light tore across his vision. He closed his eyes, forcing his breathing to stay calm. You don't control me, he whispered. I decide who I am. He focused on one thought the moment Alira had looked at him in the hall, her eyes bright with belief. That single image steadied his mind. Slowly, he guided the ship through the chaos, trusting instinct rather than instruments. When the light faded, the blackness of space returned. He had crossed the rift. Behind him, the storm collapsed quietly, leaving only silence. Hours later, when the skimmer landed back at the palace, the crowd of Saranai warriors bowed their heads. Even the emperor stood from his throne. He has passed the second trial, Aliavisor said softly. Alira's hands trembled slightly as she stepped forward. I knew he would. Elias climbed down, his uniform burned in places, his face pale but steady. Your storms are a little rougher than ours, he said with a tired smile. She looked at him quietly. You faced it without fear. You flew through something even my people call impossible. I wasn't fearless, he said. I just didn't want to disappoint someone. Alira's heart skipped. Someone. He smiled faintly. You. Her eyes widened, and for the first time the princess had no words. That night, the palace grew quiet. Alira walked through the moonlit garden, thinking of everything she had seen. When she found Elias sitting near the reflecting pool, she stopped beside him. You shouldn't be awake, she said softly. Couldn't sleep, he admitted. Your stars are too loud. She sat beside him, her reflection glowing beside his in the water. You've changed the way my people see you, Elias Ward. Even my father looked at you differently today, looked at her with a gentle smile. And what about you, princess? She turned her head slowly toward him. I don't see a visitor anymore. I see someone who belongs here. A quiet moment passed. The night breeze moved softly through the garden trees. Elias lowered his voice. I didn't come here to win a crown or challenge an empire. But every time I look at you, I feel like I've already won something I can't explain. Her eyes softened, but she turned away slightly. Careful, Captain. The third trial is the hardest. It will test your truth. Even love is not safe there. I'm not afraid of truth, he said quietly. I just don't like losing it. For a long while, they sat in silence. Two souls from distant worlds sharing the same night sky. The next morning, the final trial was announced. The heart of Valastra, a place no outsider had ever entered. The Saranai said it was the center of all truth, where mind and soul are laid bare. Those who entered came out changed, if they returned at all. When Elias prepared to go, Alira stopped him at the gate. Her hand brushed his arm gently. If you pass this, there will be no more trials, but you may see things that could break you. He looked at her quietly. Maybe truth isn't meant to be easy, but I'll face it. She hesitated, then said softly, If you fall, I will never forgive my people. I will never forgive myself. He smiled gently. Then I'll make sure you won't have to. He stepped through the silver doorway as it closed behind him, light wrapping around his form. Alira stood frozen, her hands clenched tightly against her chest, whispering a silent prayer to stars she no longer believed in. Inside, Elias walked alone through a corridor of endless light. His reflection followed him on every side, whispering fragments of his own thoughts. What do you seek? What is love? What is truth? He didn't know what waited at the end, but for the first time since leaving Earth, he wasn't thinking about diplomacy, honor, or trials. He was thinking about her, and far above in the throne hall. The Emperor rose slowly and said to his council, "If the human survives the heart, then perhaps the galaxy has changed more than we ever believed." Alira turned her gaze toward the glowing doorway, her eyes shining with unspoken fear and hope. "Come back to me, Elias Ward," she whispered. "Let the stars witness your heart." Elias stepped into the heart of Velastra, and the light closed behind him with a soft hum. The chamber was unlike anything he had ever seen. Walls of living crystal stretched upward, reflecting his every movement and thought. The air shimmered, vibrating with an energy that felt alive and yet calm, as if the planet itself were breathing around him. At first he thought he was alone, but then the reflections shifted. They weren't mere copies of his form, they were fragments of his past, his fears, and the choices he had made. Each one whispered silently, pressing on his mind. "What do you desire? Who are you really?" He clenched his fists. "I'm Elias Ward," he said aloud. "Captain of the Orion Dawn. I am human, and I will face whatever is here. I am not afraid." A wave of light pulsed through the chamber. Suddenly he saw visions of Earth, cities, oceans, and faces of those he loved. His family, his crew, the friends he had, lost each image, flickered with emotion. Then, interwoven among them, were visions of Alira, her eyes, her voice, her smile. Every memory of her before he met her, every projection of what he could imagine merged with reality in this chamber. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Elias Ward, you have faced fear, and you have flown through chaos. But now you will face truth. The heart reveals what lies hidden, not only in mind, but in spirit. Are you ready?" He nodded slowly. "I am ready." Immediately, the chamber shifted. The walls became rivers of light, and his own reflections multiplied into infinite versions. Each one stepped forward, echoing his doubts and questions. One reflected failure. Another reflected selfishness. Yet another whispered fears of losing Alira, of not being enough for her people, of bringing harm to her world. He felt the weight of every choice he had made, every mission, every life lost, every decision that had placed others in danger. And yet amid the chaos, one thought kept him steady. I cannot fail her. I cannot fail what she believes in me. A figure emerged from the center of the chamber. It was Alira, but not the real princess. This was an echoan image of her, created by the heart itself. She looked at him, her violet eyes glowing softly. "Elias," she said, "you know why you came here? Do you love me, or do you chase victory and honor?" He took a deep breath. "I love you," he said firmly. "Not for glory, not for status. For who you are, for your courage, for your honesty, for the way you see the world, and for the way you trusted me before I even proved myself." The echo tilted its head, studying him. "Even if the Empire rejects you?" "Even then," he said. "Even if everything falls apart, even if we cannot be together immediately, I would rather risk everything than pretend to be someone I am not." The echo smiled faintly and dissolved into light. The chamber shifted again. Now the reflections were not just images, they were choices. Paths spread before him, showing what could happen if he failed. What could happen if he tried to rule? And what could happen if he returned to Earth? Every possibility was laid bare. Elias felt a chill, but he remembered Alira's words. "Our world may test your strength, But I will be watching for your heart. He focused on that thought. All the reflections of fear, doubt, and failure began to blur, leaving only one clear path, the path of truth, the path of his own honesty. He took a step forward, another. Each step cleared more illusions. The heart of Velastra pulsed brighter, as if approving his choice. Then, a voice deeper. Dolder spoke from the core of the chamber. Elias, ward of Earth, the heart has seen your mind. The heart has seen your courage. But now it will see your bond. Who do you fight for and who do you hold in your heart? He closed his eyes and thought of Alira, standing in the palace, her gaze following him across impossible distances. He thought of her hand, the trust she had placed in him, and the way her presence had calmed even the most chaotic moments. I fight for her, he said quietly, and I hold her in my heart. She is my reason to be brave. She is my reason to survive. She is my reason to be human in a universe that seems so vast and indifferent. The chamber pulsed, and the reflections dissolved completely. For a moment, there was only light. Then, the real Alira appeared before him, standing in her silver-blue robe, eyes wide and shining. Elias, she whispered. He stepped toward her, but the heart still tested him. Shadows rose around them, depicting the Emperor, the Council, and the weight of tradition pressing down. Even if they reject you, the voice said, will your bond hold? He took her hand gently, holding it firmly. I do not care what they say, he said. I will honor her, her people, and her world. And if I must prove it, I will stand against anyone even her empire, because my heart chooses her freely. Alira's eyes glistened with tears. You truly understand what it means to love human. Not for power, not for pride, but for choice and truth. The chamber brightened until it felt like sunlight filled every corner. The shadows vanished, leaving only Elias and Alira. The heart had accepted him not for strength alone, not for skill, but for honesty, courage, and love. Elias fell to one knee instinctively, still holding her hand. Princess Alira, he said softly, I have faced fear, chaos, and truth. I have faced myself. I cannot promise the world will accept us, but I promise you this Sci will never betray your trust, and I will never stop standing for you. Alira knelt beside him. And I promise, she said, to stand by you, even when my father and empire say otherwise. I will not let fear or tradition decide my heart. I choose you, Elias Ward. The chamber pulsed one last time, and the light dimmed to a gentle glow. The test was complete. Elias rose, pulling Alira gently into an embrace. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed outside the chamber walls. But for this moment, the universe was theirs. But the heart of Velastra did not leave them untouched. Both felt the truth of their responsibilities, the cost of defiance. Alira's father, the Emperor, would not icily accept this union. Her council would resist. Yet, in that chamber, they had found clarity. Their bond was real, their choice irrevocable, and their courage proven. When they returned to the palace balcony, the Serenai Council was waiting. The Emperor's face was unreadable, stern as ever. Captain Elias Ward, he said, voice echoing across the hall. You have completed the trials. Yet the final judgment is not mine alone. You have proven bravery, but can your heart endure the challenges of my world? Elias looked at Alira and then back at the Emperor. I do not seek to rule your world, he said. I seek to honor it. I seek to honor her. If that is enough, then I am ready. If not, I will continue to prove myself every day I live. The Emperor studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Then perhaps humanity is not as weak as I believed. You have passed the trials not only with skill, but with heart. The heart of Velastra has spoken, and it sees your bond as true. Alira exhaled softly, relief washing over her. Father, she said quietly, I ask you to see him not as a human outsider, but as someone who has proven his worth by honesty and courage. He is not here for conquest or power. He is here for me. The Emperor's gaze softened fractionally. "Time will tell," he said, "if that bond is strong enough to withstand the trials of our empire." For the first time, Elias smiled fully. He turned to Alira. "No matter what comes, we face it together." She returned his smile, eyes shining. "Together," she whispered. The palace erupted in soft murmurs. Alira's advisors looked between each other, astonished. Some bowed in respect to Elias. Others remained wary. But all knew that something extraordinary had occurred, something the stars themselves seemed to witness that night. Beneath Valastra's twin moons, Elias and Alira stood together in the palace garden. The air was cool, fragrant, and alive with the quiet hum of the planet. Silvery pools reflected their images, intertwined. For a brief moment, the world's politics, expectations, and fears seemed distant, as if the universe itself paused to watch them. "You've changed how I see humans," Alira said softly. "I thought your kind was only capable of pride and ambition. But you are more. You are courage and honor and heart all in one. And you've changed how I see my own choices," Elias said. "I've led armies, faced stars, and survived dangers I can't name. But meeting you, seeing your world, it taught me that bravery is nothing without love and trust." Alira laughed softly, a sound like crystal bells. "Then we've both learned something today." They walked together through the garden, hands brushing, hearts tethered across worlds. Outside, the stars of Valastra sparkled like distant diamonds, each one a witness to a bond that could alter the fate of two civilizations. But even in that moment of peace, they both knew the empire, tradition, and countless expectations still awaited. Their journey was far from over. The trials had proven their courage and heart, but the challenge of uniting two worlds had only just begun. Yet Elias felt no fear. He had faced his past, his fears, and the heart of Valastra itself. And now, with Alira by his side, he was ready to face whatever the future held. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we will begin the rest of our story. Whatever comes, I stand with you." Alira looked up at him, her violet eyes reflecting moonlight. "And I with you," she said. Above them, the twin moons of Valastra shone bright, as if promising that even in a universe of endless stars, two hearts could find their path together. And so, their bond was forged not by blood, not by law, but by courage, honesty, and a love that had already faced the impossible. The morning on Valastra was quiet but tense. Captain Elias Ward and Princess Alira Serenai walked side by side through the palace corridors, knowing the Emperor and his council would not make this easy. The heart of Valastra had accepted Elias, proving his courage, honesty, and love, but tradition still held power over hearts hardened by centuries of rules. The Emperor sat at the high throne, his face stern. "Captain Ward," he said, voice echoing in the chamber, "you have survived the trials of courage and truth. You have passed the heart of Valastra. Yet my council and I must weigh whether a human may join our world not as a guest, but as a partner to my daughter." Elias straightened his shoulders. "Your Majesty, I do not seek to rule. I only wish to stand with Alira, to protect and honor her. Nothing else matters to me," the council murmured among themselves, skeptical whispers rolling like distant thunder. One elder spoke. "Your Majesty, a human is not bound by our codes. Even if the heart accepts him, how can we be certain he can endure the challenges of Valastra?" Alira stepped forward, her silver-blue robe flowing behind her like liquid light. "Father," she said, her voice clear and steady, "this is not about endurance alone. Captain Ward has proven courage beyond measure. He has faced fear, chaos, and the truth of his own heart. He is not here to conquer. He is here because he chose to love. And love is stronger than any code you place above it." The Emperor's eyes softened slightly, but he said nothing. Elias watched Alira and saw not only the determination of a princess, but the depth of her heart. She had risked her honor to speak for him. That alone was proof of their bond. One council member, the sternest among them, rose. "Then let the final test be this. Captain Ward must demonstrate his loyalty before the entire empire. You will face a choice. Remain on Velastra and fight alongside our people, or return to Earth and leave your life behind. Only then can we see whether your bond is true." Elias nodded. He understood. This test was not about skill, not about fear. It was about commitment, and he had already made his choice. "I will remain," he said. "Not to claim power, but to honor Alira, her people, and her world. My loyalty is my own, and it is unwavering." Alira's eyes filled with tears. "Then you truly are the one," she whispered. The council stepped back, some in surprise, others in reluctant respect. Even the emperor gave a small nod. "Very well. You will face your first challenge tomorrow. But tonight, we prepare you both for the trials to come. For your hearts will be tested as much as your courage." The palace gardens were quiet when Elias and Alira finally found a moment alone. The twin moons of Velastra reflected softly in the silver pools. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Elias, the Empire may still resist. My father, my people, they are not easily swayed. You have passed every test, but this is different. Will you stay with me, even if it means standing against them all?" "I will," he said without hesitation. "I do not fear their disapproval, their judgments, or even the trials ahead. My place is here with you." She stepped closer, resting her hand on his chest. "And if I fall, if they try to separate us, then I will stand stronger," he said, his hand covering hers. "And I will never let them take what we have. I will fight for us, not for glory, but because we belong to each other." That night, they walked among the silver flowers, hand in hand. Their shadows stretched long across the ground, intertwined as if the universe itself recognized the bond forming between two worlds. For a moment, all politics, all tradition, and all expectations faded. There was only the two of them and the quiet certainty that their hearts had chosen truth. The next day, the trials began. Unlike the previous challenges, these were not physical tests or flights through storms of light. These were challenges of loyalty, of heart, of choice. The council presented situations designed to tempt Elias, offers of power, appeals to ambition, and illusions that could return him to Earth with safety and reward. Every offer he refused. Every temptation he faced, thought only of Alira. When illusions tried to sway him with visions of her being safe only if he left, he refused. "I will not abandon her," he whispered, pushing past the illusions. "She is my reason to stand. I will remain true." Alira watched him silently. Each test he passed reinforced not only his love, but his humanity. Where the Serenai valued perfection and control, Elias displayed something they had long forgotten: a heart that chose honesty, courage, and loyalty above all. The council murmured among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others whispering approval. The emperor watched quietly, his expression unreadable. But inside, even he felt the undeniable truth. Elias had proven not only his courage, but his unwavering heart. Finally, the last test was presented, a ceremonial choice. Elias was brought to a grand hall where a single mirror stood. On one side, it reflected Earth, warm and familiar. On the other, Velastra, vibrant and shining under twin moons. The council spoke solemnly, "Choose, human. Where will your allegiance lie?" Elias looked at the mirror of Earth and saw family, friends, and the world he had always known. Then he looked at Velastra and saw Alira, her hand outstretched, her eyes filled with trust and hope. He stepped toward Velastra, taking her hand in his. "I choose this world," he said. "Not for power, not for comfort, but because she is here. She is my choice. My heart belongs here, with her, and with this people I have learned to respect and honor." The hall fell silent. Then slowly, the council members bowed, one by one. The emperor rose from his throne, his eyes softening. "Elias, ward of Earth," he said, "you have proven what no trial could ever truly measure. Not skill, not courage, but the strength of your heart. The heart of Velastra has accepted you. So do we. Alira ran to him, tears streaming freely now. "You did it," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "You chose us, and us alone." He smiled, holding her close. "I had no other choice. My heart already knew what it wanted." Outside the palace, the people of Velastra cheered. News of Elisa's courage and his bond with the princess spread quickly, even beyond the city walls. For the first time in centuries, humans and Sarenai were seen as equals to species connected not by politics, but by trust, honor, and love. That evening, under the twin moons, the emperor approached them in the gardens. He placed a hand on Ilias's shoulder, firm but gentle. "You have not only proven yourself to my daughter and me, you have reminded all of us that love and loyalty are greater than fear and tradition. Welcome to Velastra, Captain Ward." Lyra smiled at her father, then at Elias. "Thank you," she said softly, "for trusting me, for trusting us." Elias took her hand, holding it close. "No thank you," he said, "for showing me a world worth protecting and a love worth risking everything for." The days that followed were filled with celebration. Music, lights, and laughter echoed through the palace halls. Humans and Sarenai alike honored the courage and honesty of one man and the heart of a princess who dared to speak truth. But even amid joy, Elias and Alira knew their journey was only beginning. Tradition, expectation, and the challenges of uniting two worlds would continue. Yet they were ready. Together, they could face anything. Together, they were stronger than any empire, any trial, any challenge. One evening, they walked along the palace balcony, hand in hand, watching the stars. "Do you think people on Earth will ever understand?" Alira asked softly. Elias smiled. "Some will, some won't, but that doesn't matter. What matters is us and the choice we made. We faced the universe together." She rested her head on his shoulder. "I never imagined a human could be so strong, yet so gentle. I never imagined an alien princess could be so brave, so honest, and so willing to trust across worlds," he replied. "We've changed each other, Alira, forever."
Oh.
The twin moons of Velastra shone above them, their light reflecting in the pools below. The planet itself seemed to hum with life and promise. For the first time in centuries, humans and Sarenai could look at each other not as strangers or rivals, but as equals, connected by trust, courage, and love. Elias held Alira close, and she looked up at him, her violet eyes reflecting the moons. "Whatever comes next," she said, "we face it together." "Together," he repeated. And in that simple word lay the promise of all the adventures, challenges, and victories that awaited them. As night deepened, the palace lights glimmered softly, echoing across the city. The story of Captain Elias Ward and Princess Alira Sarenai would be remembered for generations, not as a tale of conquest, nor of power, but as a story of choice, honor, and the courage to love freely. And so, under the twin moons and stars of Velastra, two hearts from distant worlds beat as one, ready to face whatever the universe had in store together.